Welcome to Voices from Cambridge, a podcast about the people behind the university.
In each episode, we explore their journeys and what Cambridge has meant to them.
We are your hosts, Annie
and Alia.
Our aim is to open up Cambridge and share conversations that connect and inspire.
With a special thanks to the Woolf Institute for hosting us. Thank you for being here.
We are delighted to have with us today Seherish Abrar, who is a PhD scholar at the Faculty of Divinity based in Jesus College. Welcome, Seherish.
Thank you for having me.
Could you start by telling us a little about your journey to Cambridge? What brought you here and how did you come to be part of the Woolf Institute?
Sure. So I moved to Cambridge in 2022 for work to join the Woolf Institute. And actually it was someone from the centre where I did my master's, a PhD student there, who told my friends who were in their first year of PhD about a job at the Woolf Institute. And obviously they were not ready to start applying for jobs yet. And they knew that I was looking for research experience. So they told her, why don't you ask Seherish? So I had a chat with whoever was hiring at the Woolf Institute. And basically we went from there. And that's how I ended up here.
Yeah. How long have you been here in Cambridge?
Since 2022, April 2022, I think. So I worked at the Woolf Institute for about 3.5 years.
Cool.
What was your undergrad and master's in?
My undergrad was in religion and education at the University of Huddersfield. Then I did my master's at Cardiff University in the Centre for the Study of Islam in the UK. And the master's course was called Islam in Contemporary Britain.
Yeah, interesting. What did Cambridge represent to you before you arrived, and how has that perception changed since being here?
I think before coming to the Woolf Institute and obviously having no interaction with the University of Cambridge at all, it was kind of just this like elitist institution, that I kind of didn't want to be part of. And then I got to the Woolf Institute and I still kind of had those ideas and I was like, oh, I'm going to apply for a PhD eventually, but I'm not going to apply here. Like, I don't want to be part of this institution. I don't want to be part of this kind of elitist system that, you know, still is quite, in some ways, unequal. And I think over the time that changed because I had more interaction with lots of different students from the university through the Woolf Institute, through going to kind of events with the Cambridge Interfaith program at Divinity, and just meeting lots of different people, lecturers as well, people doing research for the university. And that kind of changed my perception a little bit because they were from lots of different backgrounds and had very interesting stories.
We're so happy that you are here. You are a member of Jesus College. What does being part of that college community mean to you?
I thought for a long time about how to choose a college. I asked lots of different people. I had a very long conversation with one of our friends about which college to choose for my application. And ultimately, we narrowed it down and then I basically went on acceptance rate. And actually, every good thing I heard about Jesus College was after I had been accepted. So I was kind of like, okay, this has worked out really well. And I'm very lucky that it's worked out well. It could have gone the completely opposite way. But one of the things I really like about Jesus College is that the accommodation, which we were just talking about, is on site. The postgrad accommodation is next to the college. So you're not very far away, which is sometimes the case for other colleges. And we're kind of in the city centre, but kind of not on the main tourist track, which is nice. So you're very close to things, but also it's a little bit quiet as well. And so far, I mean, I'm one term in, so I haven't experienced that much stuff yet, but it's been really nice so far. I've enjoyed being part of the NCR, I've joined the committee, and it's just been really nice to meet lots of people that are also starting in this new system and trying to figure it out as well. So it's been really nice to have that community around me.
Usually, I would say for postgrads, it can feel quite lonely doing a PhD or something. How do you think the collegiate life allows you to not feel that way?
Yeah, I think just the fact that there are other people there. I mean, there are definitely more MPhil students than PhD students. So I'm kind of thinking, what am I going to do next year now that I've befriended all these MPhil students that are leaving at the end of the academic year? But it's nice to just kind of sit and have a bit of a whinge with people about things that are going wrong or things that have happened this week and kind of get just this kind of collective, you know, complaining. So you feel like it's not just you going through these things. And I think especially when you're doing a humanities subject or a social science subject and you're not part of kind of a research lab, your research anyway is very individual. It's very lonely. Even if you go to your faculty every day and you see people and you meet people, the actual research you're doing, not many people can relate to it. Exactly. So I found that talking to people from lots of different subjects, even from STEM subjects at college, really helps me kind of work through maybe problems I've come across with reading and things like that, and kind of getting advice from second and third year PhDs as well in college about what kind of, I don't know, referencing tool they're using or how they're structuring their PhD, or, you know, asking them about their first year report and things like that. So it's really good for getting advice and just in, you know, just getting to know people. And because I live so close to the college as well, everyone is kind of around there all the time. So it's really nice. You can just be walking around and see your friend and have a chat.
And how often do you go to the faculty?
This term, I haven't gone very often, mostly because I don't want to say anything negative. There is not like a PhD office at Divinity. Not that you necessarily need one, but I have met with my supervisor every week this term. So I've been at least once a week, but my New Year's resolution is to go more often next term and kind of make an effort to be at Divinity and in Sidgwick.
Is the Divinity faculty the one that looks like a spaceship?
I don't think it looks like a spaceship.
like
It's kind of like
round-
spirally.
Yeah.
I think it's that one.
It's that one.
I've never looked at it as a spaceship, but maybe I will from now on.
I was going to say you can convince the MPhil students to do a PhD and then they'll stay with you.
I know, yeah, that's what I've been trying to do at college.
Yeah. How does Jesus College shape your day-to-day experience as a PhD?
Quite a lot, actually, now that I've joined the committee, I think, as well. So, I mean, I live on site, so that's one thing. The canteen is very close. The really nice cafe is very close. So it's, you know, spending a lot of my money in that way. But it's, like I said before, it's just nice to always see people around, and you don't have to kind of put much effort in to meet up with people. I'm right next to the MCR, so I could just go in there and play games.
What's your role on the MCR committee?
I am the Ethnic and Religious Minorities Welfare Officer.
Cool.
So, yeah, continuing my work from Woolf, I guess.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
But yeah, I mean, I've met MPhil students who are, you know, in not similar subjects, but have had similar kind of experiences living as minorities. So it's nice to kind of have that relatability with people that are so close to me as well. Yeah.
And alongside your PhD, you're also connected to the Woolf Institute. How does that work complement or inform your doctoral research?
I think it's one of the things that influenced the topic that I chose for my thesis. I mean, my original research is usually looking specifically at Muslim communities in Britain. So kind of what I'm doing now, which is Hindu-Muslim relations, has been directly influenced by being at the Woolf Institute and learning more about interfaith, a kind of relations between minority faith communities. So in that way, it's fully influenced me doing a PhD in the first place, especially me doing it at Cambridge. And I think as I kind of continue in my studies and kind of develop it, I'm always thinking back to what I've done at the Woolf for the past 3.5 years. So what I did on the Faith and Mental Health project and kind of what I enjoyed about that and what was interesting about that. So for example, what I really liked about working on the Faith and Mental Health project was that we focused on positive things that are happening within the community that, you know, kind of are offering services where state provision is lacking. Kind of this flipping the script kind of, you know, to go from Muslims are a hard to reach community to these are things they're offering to their own community because other people are not, or the state is not kind of doing it effectively. And I've been thinking about that for my research. Obviously, a lot of the rhetoric around Hindu-Muslim relations, especially in Leicester, which is where I'm doing my case study, is obviously very negative after the riots in 2022. But one of the things I'd like to look at is what's been going on the ground in the community since then to kind of reestablish positive contact and relationships between those groups. So in that way, I think it does continue to influence how I go about and kind of how I think about what I'm doing as well.
You worked at the Woolf Institute, an organization dedicated to dialogue, coexistence, and understanding. What does the Institute's mission mean to you personally?
I think before I actually started working here, I didn't really think about it that much. I was very interested in religion and studying faith communities and specifically Muslim communities because that's my own experience being a Muslim. But I think once I got here, and even though the project that I did, which was Faith in Mental Health, was specifically looking at Muslim communities, a lot of it was kind of applicable to other communities. So I did a lot of reading around mental health services in Jewish communities and in other communities as well. And I think learning from other people's projects and the events that happen at the Woolf Institute really kind of, again, opened up how I think about things in terms of things not being black and white. And yeah, like I said, it kind of influenced me to look beyond just my own community and kind of how we as a community relate to other communities.
And much of the Woolf Institute work brings together people from different faiths, backgrounds. What have these encounters taught you about dialogue and listening?
It's not easy. Yeah, maybe the kind of seminal problem of interfaith work is that the people you're talking to are already there. So it's kind of an echo chamber. And I think I didn't really understand that that was a problem until I came to the Woolf Institute. And kind of a lot of conversation was around how do we get people that wouldn't normally come to come to events or to engage in this kind of dialogue and kind of the outreach and public engagement side of it. I think, yeah, what was the question?
What have these encounters taught you about?
What was it taught me? Yeah, the importance of kind of getting it to people who wouldn't normally engage with it. So not just kind of, well, these people are engaging with me all the time and kind of come to all the events, so let's cater to them. But also, how do you go beyond that? And why is it important to go beyond that? And I think it's something we all kind of, it is kind of common sense, but we don't really deep it until you kind of have to actually do that work. And that work is hard. It's really hard to get people to talk about interfaith or to be interested in interfaith because a lot of the times it's just something that isn't a fact of life. People will interact with people from other faiths and other cultures, but you know, to have these kind of nuanced conversations around what it means to actually interact well and kind of disagree well and still be able to get along and kind of hear each other out, I think is a different thing.
Why do you think it's difficult?
I think it's difficult because a lot of people don't fully understand or don't want to acknowledge the role that interfaith plays in all of our lives. As I said, it's just something that happens. You will inevitably work with people from different faith backgrounds and cultures. And on a day-to-day level, it might be that your interactions with other people are just very casual, very normal. There's nothing kind of negative about them. But actually, I think what the Woolf Institute tries to do is go kind of beyond that in the sense of looking at how we react to conflicts when they happen around the world and in the UK as well. And kind of, I think not just, maybe a lot of interfaith is kind of trying to balance people of faith talking to people of no faith. But I think what the Woolf Institute does really well is kind of facilitating conversation between people of different faiths.
Which can be challenging. You said that you had a role as a social media manager. What is the interaction that you discovered between the different faith communities during your time during this role?
On social media? I think, to be honest, the role itself didn't really kind of bring anything to the forefront with that because it was kind of advertising events and things like that. But being on social media all the time, especially on X or Twitter, you can see a lot of things, even if they're not directed at what we would be posting or, you know, kind of our events or our publications. You see a lot of things, and it's just that, you know, kind of the trope of social media is that everyone's a keyboard warrior, and
so true.
There's no nuance, and the way things come across is very subjective. So the way you write something can be interpreted in lots of different ways. It's like when you send a text rather than giving someone a call, and you know, they might take it really personally and be offended, and that's not how you meant for it to be. But yeah, you know, if you're a faceless avatar, you can say what you want, really. Again, this is a reason that a lot of people are leaving certain social media platforms and going to other ones because of the kind of lack of, not policing, but kind of regulations around what people can and can't say.
Seherish, I wonder, have there been any conversations or experiences that challenged your assumptions or helped you see things differently?
At the Woolf Institute? Or
at the Woolf Institute, or during your short time as a PhD?
So many. I feel like any conversation I've had about my PhD, especially with my supervisor, has been just very enlightening. I mean, it's a topic that I'm new to, so I'm obviously doing a lot of reading. around historical Hindu-Muslim relations, specifically in India, kind of pre-partition as well. And this kind of idea that everyone lived together, you know, and there was no conflict is just a big myth. It doesn't exist. Even in the UK, we like to say that, you know, in the 60s and 70s, Hindus and Muslims got along really well, and there was this kind of South Asian togetherness.
Yeah.
But actually, we don't have any evidence of that particularly.
Where do you think the narratives are coming from then?
I think it's a little bit of nostalgia from older communities, which is normal. And I'm sure on a micro level that did happen, but kind of whether that was a norm is not something that I have seen yet in my reading. So I think in terms of my PhD and where I'm at right now, a lot of it is just challenging in the sense of a lot of things that I thought that would be relevant to what I'd be reading are maybe not. And actually I'm doing a lot more historical reading than I thought I would be. So yeah, and then I think in terms of the Woolf Institute, any kind of event around dialogue and engagement, around any kind of conflict, or even, for example, like the end of life care training or the school's resources that we do. And kind of, I've been to a few of the school visits where we talk about head covering or marriage and divorce in the Abrahamic faiths. And I think sometimes what I, again, think people will ask or what children will ask is very different from what they actually ask. And I think sometimes for me especially, this kind of assumption that people will have a problem with this particular part of a project or a presentation or this particular question, it's quite enlightening to hear that that's not what they actually have questions about. For example, I went to one school and there were no questions about, are you forced to wear a hijab? But one of the questions was, how many different ways can you wear it? And I thought that was quite nice.
It's actually very cool. Why do you think spaces for dialogue are especially important in today's world?
I think because, as we were talking about with social media, the online world is just so divisive. Anyone can say anything. There's no moderation. There are too many extreme voices in any way. And there's no nuance at all. You need a place where you can go that's kind of a safe space. Safe space in the sense of you're allowed to have these conversations, and it's a place that can help you have these conversations. And so, you know, your university classroom might not be the place to have that conversation, but the Woolf Institute might be, for example. And a space kind of dedicated to that, I think, is so important, because people need to be able to have these conversations. We can't just ignore them, and we can't only talk to people that have the same opinions as us. Otherwise you end up in a silo, and nothing productive ever gets done.
What role do you think young people and early career professionals play in shaping the future of interfaith and intercultural work?
I think they have a massive role to play. I think sometimes they are a little bit looked down upon, especially from the interfaith side. I mean, I can talk more about the interfaith side rather than the intercultural, but I think there's often, especially with interfaith groups that have been established for a long time, this idea that, oh, these new people have come in and they just want to talk about AI, or they just want to do this, or they want to talk about bad things, or, you know, how to talk about things. And I've heard from other people that they've been to events where people have said, we actually don't want young people. And I think that's really sad, because, again, if you're only talking to people with the same experience as you, doing interfaith work is usually something people do as a volunteer, and that, you know, presumes that you have the ability to be a volunteer outside of your other work, and you have the means to be able to give up that time, when not everyone has that. So if you have people that are, you know, whether they're volunteers or not, whether they're being paid to do this work, that are coming to do this work, and they're younger, and, you know, they're bringing new ideas and new perspectives and new ways to think about things, I don't see how that can be a bad thing. And I don't know why that would be looked down upon. You know, it's kind of like, well, this is our thing, and we don't want younger people to kind of take over it and have their way with it. But I think you do need that. You need new people, you need fresh ideas, you need new places, you need new kind of initiatives that are focused on what people actually need. And I think, you know, we always talk about how kind of interfaith and kind of learning about other cultures and other religions and other people needs to start at such a young age. But then you don't want to use young people, and they're the people that are more in touch with kind of what's going on in youth today. Like, what are people doing? What are the platforms people are on? How do you reach young people to get this message of interfaith across? So I think there's a massive role for young people to play.
And what do you think? Are young people really eager and interested to be part of this dialogue?
That's a good question. I think so. I think young people want a place where they can talk about these things. And I think maybe school teachers are not equipped and don't have the resource all the time to facilitate these conversations. You know, they have so many responsibilities, and, you know, it just keeps piling up, and they're not paid very much for them to be doing all of these things. So I think having young people that can go to schools and, you know, give presentations or allow students to ask questions about the work that they're doing, and, you know, questions they might have about what does this mean, or how do people do this, or what's the issue, why are these people not getting along, and kind of do that in a way where they are kind of an expert in that field and kind of have some authority to say that. And I think younger people can connect better with other young people.
Yeah, I think it's like what Dunya and some of the activities of the Woolf when they go into schools. And
Exactly. Yeah, so like going to the schools, talking about hijab, you know, it's easier to ask someone who is closer to you in age than someone who isn't. It might be a question they're scared to ask an adult who's basically just another teacher, you know?
Absolutely. Cambridge brings together people from all over the world. How has being part of this environment shaped you personally and professionally in your term here?
I think professionally, it's just given me the chance to meet lots of different people from lots of different backgrounds that are very different from my own. I'm from a very particular northern background where there's only one type of Muslim, let alone other kinds of religions. So it's been really nice to come to the Woolf Institute and to Cambridge, and not only, you know, be the northern person, but also meet people from lots of different faith backgrounds, from Muslim backgrounds, but from very different experiences from mine. And I think that kind of contextualizes a lot of things that I think back on in terms of what I experienced growing up in a, I guess, predominantly white area. Yeah, and then I think in my studies, specifically being part of college and, again, meeting lots of international students especially, there's just been lots of chances to talk to them about Hindu-Muslim relations, other people working on similar topics, but where kind of themes might be shared. So again, I think it just opens up this, I guess, it opens your mind kind of to how everyone is different. And even though you know that in kind of concept, you kind of get to experience it. And sometimes it's really good, and sometimes it makes you question where people get ideas from. But it's okay. It's all kind of a learning experience, and it's all exposure to new things, which is nice. And I can see how if I had stayed in Huddersfield, for example, that I wouldn't have maybe had the chance to meet that many different people.
Seherish, and what do you enjoy most being a PhD at Cambridge?
That's a good question. So far, I've enjoyed just really getting to spend a lot of time on my research and kind of really dig into it. It's not like one essay in a module. It's kind of, you know, you get to do all that kind of background reading and kind of structure it yourself. So I've really enjoyed that. And I've enjoyed the social aspect as well. I think it was a lot going from working full time to then being a student. The social aspect was a lot. It was a big change. But I think slowly it's growing on me. Yeah.
Get used to it. You have another 3-4 years. What do you hope will be the impact of your PhD work?
I hope that I don't expect to fix any kind of community relations or inter-community relations, but I hope that it will be something that is useful for the communities that I'm researching. So I'll be doing participant observations. So I want to give something back to those communities, whether that's volunteering in their events or kind of helping to do something in any way that I can, but also to the local authorities in terms of rebuilding after conflict and rebuilding connection and relationships post-conflict. I don't foresee a massive change that I'm going to be making, or like, you know, revolutionizing the field of Hindu-Muslim relations. But, you know, I think it's a small step in thinking about Hindu-Muslim relations in the UK specifically, because there's not a lot of that right now. And also bringing attention to intra-faith, I guess, or intra-cultural relations, because I think often, especially Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs are very kind of homogenized. When we talk about minorities, we talk about the Asian minority, and actually there's a lot of differences and nuance in there. And that means needs are different, and that means there's competition for resource because everything is based around ethnic minorities, and there's maybe less so for faith categories. And that creates a lot of competition, which again then intensifies that conflict and kind of tensions in the city. So I hope to kind of show that these kind of separations, although we want people to kind of be united and feel that they're part of the same country and part of the same city and part of the same community, these kind of differences are important, and sometimes they need to be acknowledged so that people feel that their identity is being taken seriously and fully acknowledged in its holistic way.
What advice would you give someone who's considering a PhD, especially in the field of divinity?
Good question. I would say go for it. I thought for a very long time about whether or not I was going to do a PhD or even apply for a PhD, or whether I was the type of person that could finish a PhD, to be honest. Talk to lots of different people, talk to potential supervisors, and have a think about which department you should be in. I guess technically should be in sociology because I'm more of a sociology of religion person, but actually I'm very glad that I'm in divinity because it's such a interdisciplinary faculty. There's lots of people doing lots of different things, and that only kind of adds to the way you look at your own research, and you don't end up in this kind of theoretical silo. So talk to lots of different people and consider lots of options. Don't just apply to one place. Yeah, I think always talk to people, I think, is my biggest piece of advice. Get lots of different perspectives. And then more practically, while you're writing your proposal, every time you talk to someone about your proposal, they will give you something else to make the focus of your proposal. And that's okay, but just stick to what you want to actually research because everyone is coming at it from their own discipline. So
Absolutely.
don't forget why you want to study that thing.
Who is somebody that influenced you during your time at Cambridge?
Or played a role in you pursuing a PhD?
Me pursuing a PhD. I think everyone. I had kind of, when I, was accepted for the job, I had made it very clear that I'd like to gain more research experience specifically because I'd like to apply for a PhD. So I think everyone kind of knew that when I came to the Woolf Institute, and everyone really encouraged me to go for it, and especially to apply to Cambridge. I had lots of advice from colleagues, from friends, and even before I came to Cambridge, I think my lecturer at Huddersfield I guess I would credit him for the reason I am here in general, because he sent me off to do a master's when I didn't want to. And that's the reason I ended up at Woolf, because I was in Cardiff at the right time, I was talking to the right people, and that's why I ended up at the Woolf Institute, and that's why I ended up at Cambridge. So I think it's not one person, but there's a long list of people that have encouraged me to be here and supported me in that journey, and kind of are the reason I'm here now. So beautiful. Thanks.
And finally, our favorite question: what is so far your favorite Cambridge tradition?
I don't know if I have a favorite yet. I've enjoyed lots of things throughout the first term. I think it's been a very different experience becoming part of a college and becoming a student. I think my experience as someone working in Cambridge but not actually being connected to the university in a kind of formal way is very different. So far, I've enjoyed just kind of getting access to a lot of things, being part of a community. I enjoyed Christmas formals. I've enjoyed being able to go rowing. Yeah, just getting into
We'll ask you the same question in 3 years' time.
Yeah, ask me again. I might change my mind.
Yeah, amazing.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing with us your story, and we wish you the best of luck
Thank
while
you,
pursuing your
Seherish.
PhD.
Thank you so much.